Welcome back to Morning Express. Now, the Orange Democratic Movement will, in the next hour, hold its National Delegations Conference at the Kasarani Gymnasium. During the convention, ODM is set to formally endorse Raila Odinga as its presidential candidate in the forthcoming general election. Ken Aseka has the details of that particular delegation. But political commentator will help us also look into that perspective. And with us, we're joined by Evans Wafula and Honorable TJ Kajwang, the Member of Parliament for Ruaraka. So thank you for joining us this morning, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa TJ Kajwang. What is expected at the conference? One would expect that ODM has been saying all along that Raila is the man for the presidency. So why is there a need to endorse him?
Well, today is a formal family affair in which the Governing Council will present to us reports about one NASA arrangement so that we receive and adopt the report as a family of ODM, but two, also to give us the report of the nominee, presidential nominee of ODM. As you are aware, all our brothers in NASA, each of those parties have already endorsed their presidential candidates in whatever formation they came. Now, when we came in NASA, the Pentagon team.
My apologies, I'll have to cut you short. I'm told we have a bit of a challenge with the sound. But let me just hear from you, Evans Wafula. What is the importance of having a national delegates conference? We do know that Jubilee is also arranging to have one soon.
I think what's important with the ODM National Delegates Conference is that it helps Raila Odinga himself as the NASA presidential candidate to galvanize the ODM support within for NASA. The other thing that is very critical is that the attendance of the other principals in this delegates conference is a clear message that he has also received endorsement from the other principals within NASA. But most importantly, I think there have been a lot of problems that the party has been facing, especially with the primaries. And I think this offers also an opportunity for him to clear. Especially we expect him to at least bring together the losers. Because all the parties are now facing a dilemma with what to do with the so-called independent candidates. And I think this delegates conference would be a proper platform for him to urge the losers to come back in the party and to work for the party for purpose of winning this election.
Would this be an opportunity for the party to reconsolidate, reorganize itself, retroop, especially given the nominations, of course, left some a little bit sore?
Well, you see, first of all, it is true that as a family, we are now going to talk with each other. But you see, the most important thing is that we are going to present to the nation the candidate that will galvanize this country and will run to us to that dreamland, the promised dreamland that we have always promised in the liberation struggle. But more so, the meeting today is also going to be a precursor of the manifesto that we are going to put forward to the Kenyan electorate. We are going to talk about things which we will pursue as policies that will take us, that will be different from what our competitors have been saying. You know, the other day, the government said that there is growth of 8.5%. And most of it is because of infrastructure, is because of manufacturing in sectors and so on. We are going to tell this nation that that is out of step of what the common mwananchi is looking forward. Common mwananchi wants to hear that this week children are going to school. How are we going to get school fees? Mwananchi are talking about how do you put food on the table of a peasant. You know, the buildings and the infrastructure that we have will not put food on the table. Okay. And one thing that we also want to put across is happiness, the social happiness of a countryman. It is not in terms of 88.5% and digits.
Allow me to pause you. I'll come back to you just in just a bit. But Evans, do you think this is a call for right now? Because given that NASA now is a coalition, does ODM have a separate, dream that they're or both that they're pushing?
I think ODM does not have a separate dream now that they have come together as a political coalition with the other parties. I think what's important now within ODM is for the party to present itself before its supporters and to show that they're actually prepared to work with the other parties. And that's why I've said initially that the presence of Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula, and even Ruto is very important in today's National Delegates Conference for ODM. But the issues that have been trying to pull back ODM, as Mheshimiwa always know, the issue of the men in black and the people, the reasons why many other people fell out of the party. These are issues that I think the party needs to address. I don't think now Raila Odinga from today will belong to ODM as per se, but Raila Odinga now represents a larger group than a larger coalition than ODM itself.
Okay, do you feel like Raila belongs to ODM?
No, it is true that today we are going to release our own
to the NASA.
into the hands of the Pentagon and NASA to go and freely talk to the country, to go and put the nation together and to build for us that which we are all aspiring. But I want to just say, a lot of commentators talk about negative things about ODM. I've never understood why ODM attracts all the negative publicity. Perhaps it's just because negativity sells. But let me tell you, questions about men in black or, things arising out of primaries, those are issues which every party will live with. They are not issues that we are going to face, we are going to talk about in the ODM. We're just going to talk about as members and release Honorable Raila now to start speaking to the country, not as an ODM candidate, but as NASA candidate, as a candidate of this nation. Yes.
All right. And you talked about now there being, direction that is going to be given at this NDC. What is it that we should expect in terms of ideology? Is there a different ideology? Does NASA have an ideology that is different from ODM? Or is ODM ideology being borrowed by NASA?
Well, as you know, the parties that are forming NASA are pursuing fairly common ideology in terms of social democracy. They have agreed on certain basic tenets which pursue things differently from what Jubilee is. That's why I was talking about the general happiness of a countryman. You know, you can post figures and data and 8.5 and economic growth. But the happiness of a countryman who goes to vote is the ability to feed his family, his household, the ability to live like a human being and to be decent. These are some of the things which we think that Jubilee is pursuing a parochial philosophy towards social development. We think that there is a way in which we can be more practical to the people. We can talk about the cost of living. We can talk about unga and how to reduce the price of unga. In fact, if you talk about manufacturing industry, we should be talking about how to reduce cost of doing that business, how to reduce the energy cost, and so on.
And has that been done so far? You're saying we should be talking about them. Have those been addressed? Are those things, there is a difference between a government in waiting and waiting to be in government. A government in waiting has proposals on the tables that tells you that Jubilee has done things ABC. We're going to do it X, Y, Z.
Exactly. This is what we are going to unveil to the people. We are going to unveil a package which speaks to the local fellow walking on the streets or the person in the village, particularly the person in the village, because that is where we all come from. We come from one village or the other. But you see, even the manifestos that we have pursued before have been very clear on these issues. But I think now we need to enter into a new conversation with Kenyans and perhaps explain ourselves better than we did before, and show that we are now not talking about big and utopic concepts, but we are talking about how it is that a person takes his milk to the factory and what payment he gets out of there, and how to reduce prices of fertilizer, and how that exactly will affect the farmer, and how the fish that the fisherman brings ashore is able to be translated into the export market. We want to talk to the fisherman. We don't want to talk to the person who has buildings in Kileleshwa or Karen, although we care about that. But I think that the majority of this of our countrymen are talking about how to feed themselves more than how to be tenants or be landlords in this country.
Evans, do you feel that the political parties we have currently have come out strongly to give us their ideologies for Kenyans to understand what they're all about? Is it clear? Is there a clear distinction between what ODM, for example, represents and what Jubilee represents?
It will be very difficult for ODM to have a clear ideology, especially when it's coming into a coalition with parties that have also different coalitions. Same to Jubilee. I think when the Jubilee was collapsing parties and getting into the bigger Jubilee party, the issue of ideology was very also a bit tricky, because they have to come, the whole party have to identify with a certain ideology. Look, if we talk about ODM, for example, I think in the coalition, we know Raila Odinga is now the flag bearer. We understand also to some extent the ideology or the principles that ODM subscribe to. There must be a compromise between the principles for them to have, and as I said, that from today, Raila Odinga will not be the face of ODM as much as he's going to vie on an ODM ticket, but he has to be the face of NASA. What is the ideology of NASA? What does NASA subscribe to? So those are the things we want to see coming out of this NDC, because it's not like the normal NDC where they're endorsing Raila Odinga to vie on a ODM ticket against a field of many parties. We know there are only two political protagonists. We know it's Jubilee versus ODM, and probably to some extent, how will they deal with the independents?
All right.
Well, the most important thing, which I think as a matter of departure that has arisen, are two issues. One is inclusivity in the management or the affairs of this country. The fact that everybody from all walks of life in this country should find himself involved in the management of the affairs of this country. This is an issue which we are very clear as NASA, that we are going to form a system in which all the tribes, it does not matter from which part of the world, whether you are Makonde or whether you are from Suba or whether you are a Giriama, it does not matter. Somebody must locate himself somewhere in the management of the affairs of this country. That's number one. But two is devolution. Now that is where the problem is. We must have a government, and NASA is prepared to do this. NASA has committed himself to do this, that reigns on devolution. I mean, devolution has been a good concept. And I think to some extent, let me be fair to say, that it has worked because we have released the functions, and to some extent we have released funds, but we have not released all the funds. So first of all, we want to release the funds because we trust fully the devolution, but also we have to have a check on these governors. We must have a check on these governors. We must have a head of state who is brave enough to take a governor to try to account.
But let me pause you right there, Mheshimiwa, and we can use the current governors that we have as a test case.
Yes.
And so far, we have not had Raila Amolo Odinga come out strong to condemn some of the governors who have had questionable track records.
You know,
so how is that going to change when he becomes head of state? How is NASA going to deal with that? All these principles that we have may have governors who are under them, who have had questionable dealings as governors. They have not said anything about that. How is that going to change now when they become...
I tell you, it is not of a lot of use for Raila or anybody else to condemn governors. Condemnation and condemnation.
So how is that going to change when he becomes president?
What works is a government, is a head of state who is committed, because you have to have the goodwill to, you know, Uhuru Kenyatta has been saying that, what can I do, Jameni, that they are institutions.
But that sounds like the same thing you're saying that Raila is saying right now as head of ODM. He has ODM members who are governors. Yes. But what can he do? Because he does not have the machinery.
No. That is not the point. The point is that there is a government is an administration whose constitutional duty is to make sure that these institutions work. If you are a head of state who is able to say, gentlemen, I want thieves to be in court, they will be in court. But of course, if you consort with them, they won't be. Now look, Raila could be the party leader in whose party a lot of these governors belong. But until you are in government and you are able to direct or put your foot forward for those institutions to work. It needs the goodwill of a head of state. The fact that there is devolution, we didn't say that we have pieces and pieces of government. We only have one unitary government, and that government is led by a head of state. Whether it's a governor or whoever, the head of state will say, I want that person in jail, and the systems will work towards it. But if you have a president who says, Jameni, what will I do?
What can I do?
Yeah, and that is how these guys will go.
I think I don't want to blame this on President Uhuru or Raila being or a political party. I think it's the way our politics is. If you go to election, look, for example, in 2013, ODM almost won and had many governors, same to Jubilee. But it's about loyalty. When we have a system where a political party sponsors governors, and these governors have allegiance to a certain political person. Like, we know there are zones that are Raila zones, including governors. I remember immediately after the election in 2013, there was a problem between Raila and Uhuru when he made his first trip to Mombasa, how he was received there by Joho, and with even traditional dancers, that this is like my territory, because this is my governors. And such a system actually makes checks and balances not even to be effective at the
So are we
county
saying
levels.
that with our current political state, there is no way of checking?
I think with our current political system is really conflicted to an extent whereby if, for example, Kajwang comes from a zone that is a Raila zone and he ends up being a governor, he expects the party leader to protect him against maybe, and that's what we have witnessed, we have been seeing. When there's corruption, especially the issues of corruption, when there's corruption in Jubilee zones, you see the president might actually say, I don't know what to do. When it's corruption in the ODM zones, the same thing. And we saw that going up to the level where in Mombasa, for example, Governor Joho and the president having a tug of war on things, on matters development.
Well, I think much depends on the charisma. It depends on the style of government. It depends on the amount of pressure that a president or a head of state is able to wield down. Devolution has not given governors more power than the head of state at all. And if you compare most of African countries I know, in which they are governors, even Southern Sudan have governors, by the way, and South Africa have that kind of system, of devolved system. They don't work as though they are empires of their own, at least not in issues of corruption. But look, there could be systems as we do have them in Kenya, and they are constitutional offices. They are said, quote, quote, to be independent. But a head of state is a head of state. If there is problem somewhere, you put your foot down, those institutions will work. So what we need is a more robust management, a more robust head of state who does not say, well, you know, the Constitution ties my hands. He say, no, the buck stops on my doorstep. On my doorstep, yes. So things must work.
But there have been contradictions. I mean, there's instances the president has actually even said personally that Mombasa County government needs to account for monies that they have received. And you would hear voices coming from ODM saying, no, the president is attacking a county government and actually personally attacking a governor. So,
but Evans, mustn't the buck stop somewhere? Because when we talk about corruption, we don't lack laws, we don't lack institutions, we don't lack, we have all that in place, but somehow it just seems to happen. Remember the president not too long ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, or a year ago, where he was saying that even in his own office, there is corruption, yet heads are going to roll. We're still waiting for heads to roll.
But I think it's in terms of leadership. We shouldn't isolate leadership to mean the presidency. But in terms when we are dealing about corruption, which is actually a social problem, I think we need to look at the role of leaders at all hierarchy. I think from political parties themselves to national level. Because if, for example, the county government of Mombasa, and I keep on referring to that because that's where I've seen even the senator coming clearly and saying, we have a problem here. And we expect that in such a setup, I think we need to see the hierarchy of the party and all leaders, and in fact also the role of the churches. We can't isolate the role of the churches in trying to deal with this kind of matters. Because what has happened that the politics of this our kind of politics is that it's actually been left at one level, whereby everything happens, it's either on the office, on the doorstep of the presidency. But everybody has to have a responsibility. And I expect maybe in like developed democracies, like look what happened in Korea when the prime minister, people protested and she had to step down. I think what we want to see, even ODM supporters themselves saying that, we have a problem in our party where our party membership is also engaging in some malpractices in terms of whether it's corruption, and see people coming out and actually talking about it.
Okay, let's come back to the NDC, Mheshimiwa. And of course, we do know that we're coming from the nominations, and one of the things is that there could have been a fallout. There are some who are going independent, although it's a little bit confusing to the electorate, because there are those who are going independent and supporting Raila Odinga or supporting Uhuru. There are others who are going independent and saying, I have nothing to do with the party. How is the party going to deal with that at the NDC?
Well, let me say that nomination is a very rough game. You come out of it fairly worn out. Sometimes you feel a little very frustrated, and sometimes you also feel very dejected. This is not just special to any political party. This is a political process that runs across. So we need time, and we don't have that time. We need quickly to heal. We need quickly to pick up the pieces. And we need now to focus on the big prize. The big prize is about a nation called Kenya. It is now not the ward or the constituency or the county or any such, provincial affairs. And I think this will go with everybody else, people in Jubilee and so on. I'm sure they are going to dust off themselves and start seeing how they can move. But look, we are still grappling and trying to understand where we are with these concepts that we have brought, particularly independent, political party, multi-party, and so on. And I think looking at it from an intellectual point of view, I think it will take us time to eschew it and understand where we are. Because look, you cannot say that you are independent when you are not representing a constituency which is independent. There must be a constituency out there that identifies to policies or philosophies of independence. They are saying on issues on environment, this is where we will take. And it does not matter what a political party takes. So this is where
corruption, this is what we
this
do.
is, yeah. And so although you are not leading a political party, but you are representing the views of those people.
You have an ideology that they can tag after.
Yes, young people who need not be in a political party, but have specific understanding and views on how social relations, for example, should work. That is an important part of the constituency. But you see now, this is where the confusion comes. A person describes himself as an independent, but goes to support ideals which are encompassed in a particular political party. And then you will see the confusion in the voters, because they will not separate who is in the political party or who is an independent. But I think that at the end of the day, this goes across. Kenyans are going to vote on the basis of two enclaves. There will be two horses. One is representing the general NASA fraternity. One will be representing the other Jubilee fraternity, the alternative fraternity. And so it will not be much about the independent or the political party. It will be the constellation that at the end of the day forms the NASA thinking. The other one will be the thinking that forms the Jubilee. Yeah, I think that is how the voters will go.
Okay.
And so whether you go independent, it will be very difficult, for example, to think that you can pursue, you are in Jubilee and you think that your people can come from NASA to vote you. It's not possible.
It doesn't happen. All right, maybe your closing comments as we finish, Evans.
I think
on what we should expect.
ODM and NASA is a little bit disadvantaged when it comes to dealing with the issue of independence. I think in Jubilee we have had the president saying that we have many jobs to give those who have lost. I think NASA and ODM have nothing to offer. And I think it's only to persuade those who lost to join to come back to the party and work towards victory. But for Jubilee, we've seen even some people saying so-and-so Tosha after lengthy negotiations and discussions. That's, interestingly, is that after this election, and especially as we go to the election, I think the so-called independent are not only going to be a sticking point, a sticking point to the parties. Mm-hmm. Every party will have to either deal with them now or post-election, so that they have a compromise.
I don't know if I have one minute for him, because I think I want to beg, he says that Jubilee has so much to offer. It is NASA that has everything to offer, because it is NASA that is going to sit on government. It is NASA that we will have so much to share. You know, the cow is big. As they say, the elephant is big. But I think that we are healing up. We are talking together, and I have seen Jubilee also. I was, for example, impressed. I mean, I was astonished when Commander, bowed out and supported a young man, Jaguar, who is very good in the entertainment industry. I mean, he's my neighbor. Stare is just my neighbor in Ruaraka, and I was gladly surprised that an old man would think that young people should
actually come up.
So we are going to heal. And I think in the next few days, you will see a campaign like no other.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we'll have to wind up right there, and we wish you all the best in the NDC today. And, well, that's where we wind up the show this morning and this week. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Morning Express. But do stay with us right here on KTN News. Sophia Wanuna is taking up Worldview next at the top of the hour. That will be at 9 o'clock prompt. Otherwise, we wish you a great weekend. Do take care of yourselves and each other. God bless.